Hello everybody, it's Stelios from the Stelios Show, and like most people living in the United Kingdom, I call this archipelago off the coast of northwestern Europe, comprising islands such as Great Britain, Ireland, the Isle of Man, and many other 6,000 islands, the British Isles. However, if I was living in Ireland, especially the Republic of Ireland, that would be a very different story. The government of the Republic of Ireland doesn't recognise British Isles as a term to refer to the archipelago, and the majority of the Irish population similarly avoids using the term. There are numerous alternative names for the archipelago, such as Britain and Ireland, the Anglo-Celtic Isles, which is what I'd rename it to if it had to be renamed, the Atlantic archipelago, and the islands of the North Atlantic, just to name a few. Many bilingual Irish dictionary websites translate British Isles into Irish as Air, Agus and Britain More, literally meaning Ireland and Great Britain. In official documents jointly created by the United Kingdom and Ireland, however, such as the 1998 Good Friday Agreement, the archipelago is simply referred to as these islands. Now, on a surface level, it makes perfect sense for the Irish, especially nationalists and Republicans, to avoid using the term British Isles. Especially when you look at the history and relations between Ireland and its eastern neighbour, it is completely understandable why the Irish refrain from using the term and may view it as more of a political term than a geographical one. However, when you look at the history behind it, the term British Isles actually carries significant heritage for both the United Kingdom and Ireland. In this video I will explain how and why it does, and how and why Ireland is a British Isle from a geographical perspective. Now, for any Irish people here who may be thinking this is going to be some biased, inaccurate propaganda video promoting Britain in a totally positive light, let me reassure you, it's not. In fact, as an ethnic Greek Cypriot, I too have my own beef with the British. As much as I love this country and am fortunate to be here, that has nothing to do with history, especially imperial history. Britain significantly contributed to the Cyprus problem and the de facto partition of my native homeland, and if you ask people like South Asians, Middle Easterns, and of course the Irish, chances are they won't think positively of Britain entirely either. However, we aren't here to talk about beef, we're here to talk about facts. We're here to talk about how Ireland used to be referred to as Little Britain before the concept of Britishness was even a thing, how the indigenous peoples of the island of Great Britain were the Celtic Britons, who spoke Common Brittonic, and the English weren't a people until much later, among many other things. And I hope, after finishing this video, you will better understand the perspective of calling these islands the British Isles. First of all, a little bit of background. The archipelago was first discovered by Greek explorer Pythias of Massilia in 325 BCE. Upon his discovery, he named the largest island of the archipelago, now known as Great Britain, Albion, the earliest recorded name for the island of Great Britain, possibly derived from the Latin albus, meaning white, possibly referring to the White Cliffs of Dover, the first view of Great Britain from the continent. As for the second largest island, now known as Ireland, he named it Ierne. Now, it is uncertain why Pythias gave Ireland this name. However, it is possible that Ierne was derived from Eru, Ireland's eponymous goddess, from whom the island got its Irish language name, Air. Over time, the island began being referred to as Hibernia, its classical Latin name meaning land of winter, derived from the Latin Hibernus, meaning wintry. In his 147 to 148 CE work, Almagest, Greek geographer Claudius Ptolemy referred to the largest island of the archipelago by its modern name, Great Britain. As for the second largest island, now known as Ireland, he referred to it as Little Britain. So, as you can see, at this point, Britain had now become a place name. This archipelago now had its name, Britain, derived from the Latin Britannia, a Latinization of its Common Brittonic name, Brittany, possibly meaning the tattooed folk, referring to Celtic Briton body decoration. This archipelago was now the British Isles. If you came from an island of this archipelago, you were a Briton. In this case, the archipelago was still primarily inhabited by its indigenous Celtic population, so if you were a Briton, you were a Celtic Briton. If you were a Celtic Briton, your native language was Common Brittonic. Of course, the Anglo-Saxons later conquered and settled in Great Britain, wiping it of most of its indigenous Celtic population. Now, the last surviving Celtic Britons are either a minority in their own isle, like the Welsh, or have been completely migrated, like the Bretons. Speaking of whom, the Bretons have retained their native name, both in terms of describing themselves and their nation, Brittany. As you can hear in both of those terms, they incorporate the name of the Bretons' original homeland, Britain. In fact, Breton is the old French translation of Britain. In addition to that, the terms Welsh and Wales are the modern descendants of the Old English word weal, meaning foreigner or stranger, which is ironically what the Anglo-Saxons referred to the Celtic Britons as. Now, the Anglo-Saxons definitely appropriated the term British Isles. However, that does not take away from the fact that Britain was originally nothing more than a place name accepted by its indigenous Celtic population, who called themselves Britons without any second thoughts. As such, Britain as a word should still be used in that sense, as a place name. Ireland is British, just geographically. Obviously only the 6 counties in the north can be called British politically. So, when it comes to the topic of the name of the British Isles, if they were to be renamed, all that would happen is heritage would just be taken away from both sides. Meaning, by refusing to acknowledge the term British Isles, Ireland is ignoring a part of its Celtic heritage. Obviously they have reasons for this due to the term's appropriation, but that still does not take away from the fact that Britain was originally nothing more than a place name accepted by its indigenous Celtic population. Obviously they have reasons for this due to the term's appropriation, but the term still carries heritage within it for both sides, as the name of the modern British state for the United Kingdom, and as the Celtic name for the archipelago it is part of for Ireland. And for that reason, I believe Ireland should use this term. So, now that we've established Ireland is, and should refer to itself as, a British Isle, that means it's a British island, right? Well, no. As similar as the two terms are, they actually have very different meanings. British Isles is a geographical name for this archipelago, whilst British Islands is a term within UK law that refers to the UK, the Isle of Man, and the Channel Islands collectively. As such, in this sense, Ireland isn't a British island like, for example, the Isle of Man is, but it is certainly a British Isle from a geographical perspective. Now, in complete retrospect, I won't say the United Kingdom uses the term British Isles in a completely geographical sense. I say this because even though they don't form part of the archipelago, the Channel Islands are considered part of the British Isles. Why? Because they're British Crown dependencies, therefore they're British Isles? But they don't form part of the archipelago. Wasn't this a geographical term? So, because of that, I personally don't recognise the Channel Islands as part of the British Isles. They're definitely British islands, but they don't form part of the British Isles archipelago, and in this sense, I can understand even more why the Irish may see this term as more of a political one than a geographical one. As such, the Channel Islands should stop being recognised as British Isles. Now that we're at the end of this video, I hope you, the viewer, especially if you're an Irish viewer, now have a better understanding of the term British Isles, and why I believe Ireland should use this term. Because originally, it was nothing more than a place name accepted by its indigenous Celtic population, who called themselves Britons without any second thoughts, and named their native language, Common Brittonic, after it. The term British Isles carries heritage for both sides. To rename the Isles is to take away heritage from both sides. Thank you for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it. To see my last video, click here. If you really enjoy my channel, click here to subscribe. But for now, goodbye and have a nice day.